Timothy Chalamet, Zayn Malik, Justin Bieber. What do they all have in common? Dave Aldan's Designs by Rastah, the Pakistani streetwear brand that's redefining fashion by blending South Asian artisanship with contemporary style. In this audio-only episode of Conversations with Chai, I sit down with Rastah founders Zain and Ish to explore their remarkable journey. From losses to global recognition, discover how they transformed Rastah from a struggling startup into a brand competing with fashion giants like Dior, Prada, and Louis Vuitton.
In Pakistan, people are buying Rastah because it's become this sort of status symbol. Obviously, it's not as expensive as Louis or Balenciaga or whatnot.
Learn about the innovative approaches they employed when resources were scarce, but determination was abundant.
We would literally be in contact with every single person who followed us. Those are our first customers.
Even people that liked our photos. We
Yeah.
would send them DMs.
It was
and
like
have,
a real
proper conversation
hustle.
Building a cult following. Understand the tactics that cultivated a dedicated global fan base for their unique designs.
There are some that have spent around $100,000. And these are just people from conversations just liked a photo. That sort of manifested itself into this big community that we have today.
Prepare to be inspired by the ingenuity of these visionary founders. Brew a cup of chai and tune in to this captivating episode.
It's Lil Baby.
I'm your host, Ram Chaudhary, aka Lil Baby Ram Ram. I have the founders of a brand that's been worn by the likes of Zayn Malik, French Montana. I have with me the founders of Rastah, Zain and Ish. How y'all doing?
Very good.
Very good.
How are
Very
you?
blessed to be here.
I had to shorten out the list of people who have really
We
worn
were
the
just
brand,
talking
because
about this
otherwise we'd be
before.
here for a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, no, it's been a good journey with the celebrities. I mean, also a bit of luck, I would say.
It's very lucky. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're very blessed.
You guys are too humble.
Yeah.
The luck is the pieces are insane, right? Like, I think that's like the first thing that I noticed about the brand is that there's, of course, I'm happy. There's like almost like a South Asian creative renaissance, right? Where there's so many brands being built. And in a time where like the fashion is so, everyone could go to India, Pakistan to get like a t-shirt printed on, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that makes Rastah stand out is it's true. I know people oversay it, but it's truly the artisanal nature of it, right?
Yeah.
Like even these pieces, right? And these are like on the simpler side of the
On the
pieces
milder side, definitely.
are still so intricate.
Yeah.
For sure.
Was that something that when y'all started this, was that the inceptional vision for this?
I mean, to be honest, when we started, we didn't know what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to sell shawls.
We were selling tapestries. I remember the exact conversation, actually. We were
Yeah.
like, oh, we were both in college at this time, I think.
Yeah.
We were like, these college students have tapestries in their bedrooms. We're going to sell that, like a South Asian tapestry.
Mm-hmm.
And then Zan said, like, why don't we cut out a little box and just put it on the back of a hoodie and see what happens.
Actually,
And
it was Adnan.
Was it Adnan?
It was Adnan.
Okay, it was Adnan. Yeah, Adnan's another partner of ours.
He was like, what are you guys doing?
He's British, by the way. Very British and proper.
No one's going to buy shawls?
You're gonna fail?
Get shawls? You're going to fail?
So you guys cut out and then put it on the hoodie, and then what happens?
Yeah.
I mean, the first year, I think it was like maybe late 2017 or pretty much all of 2018, we spent just making samples. So the Instagram was up before for like a good part of a year before it even went live. So one thing that we did was we didn't really think too much about it, and we started to build this community without even having launched anything yet. So we were sharing the entire process of how we got to our first sample with our community. That's how a lot of people started to like sort of be like, oh, what's this? What's going on? And these days, I see a lot of young brands just trying to be perfectionists, where they'll be like, yeah, I've got a cool brand name. We've shot a lookbook, and this is the photographer. This is this vibe, and they spend way too much money and resources on that first lookbook, and it just flops. Because what matters is the storytelling and the process. So the first year was just like making these samples, and the first samples were horrible,
Bad, yeah.
really bad.
I think what you're describing is like the building of a brand, right? 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, of course, the clothes all those things that you mentioned, like the lookbook and all that, have to be good
Yeah,
at some point,
yeah,
right? But if people don't care about the brand, it doesn't really matter. Again, it's very tough to stand out in terms of like
Yeah.
clothing and fashion, right?
Yeah.
Like people need to feel like, hey, why am I spending $300 on this hoodie when this other hoodie is $50 and has the same functional value? It's only the belief in what that brand is.
100%. That's very important. The story is like super, super key over here.
Is that something that you felt like came naturally because you guys were building out this product, right? And you're like
Yeah.
obviously just documenting the build out,
Yeah.
right? That ended up being the story because it is the story, right? But was that something intentional, or was it really like, yo, I'm figuring this out right now?
I think it was just a case of we were really hungry and impatient, and
Yeah.
we were just like, we want to do this, and we had no egos about it because we didn't go to fashion school, right? Typically, if you go to fashion school, you have this cookie cutter sort of approach on how to do things. But with us, we didn't know what we were doing. So we didn't know what the rules were. So we were just sharing everything that we were doing on social media. And that was when it was like sort of easier to grow on Instagram as well. And people just really bought into that authenticity of the brand. Even though in the beginning, the pieces were not very elevated. We the first pieces we launched were just like, I think, a couple hoodies. This black and beige horseback hoodie, which is at the pop-up.
Yeah,
We brought it
it's so
back
in
for the
demand that
pop-up.
We brought it back. But,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think to answer your initial question, like what happened after we made those two hoodies, is financially speaking, nothing, right? And that's like a boring answer. But I think in business, that's you kind of have to embrace that. And there was a time where I like sat Zayn down. I was like, dude, we gotta sell 3 of these a day
Yeah.
at minimum. And we talk about this now, but we would literally be in contact with every single person who followed us. Like we knew them, we'd message them, etc. And those are our first customers.
Even people that liked our
Yeah,
photos, we
yeah.
would send them DMs.
It was
and
like
have,
a real
proper conversations with
hustle.
them.
Yeah.
See, like that's the part. Like, I'm so glad y'all brought this
Yeah.
up, right? Because that's the real relationship building, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody, especially in this day and age, wants to sell you something off the first strip, right? Because they just want to close you, right? Because to you,
Yeah.
to them, it's like $1, right? But they're not willing to do like that groundwork to truly build a relationship before I ask something of you. Like, let me pour something into that. So you guys are hand messaging people, right? Like that's the level of commitment, right?
Yeah, not even that. I remember the Instagram feature just came out actually, where you could video call someone. So if they had like specific questions, I'd be like, let's jump on a video call. I'll show you the piece myself. Yeah, that's to the level we went to, and we were both doing that, like
Yeah.
day in and day out. And
You
there was a period of time where like 40, 50 days passed, and we were hitting 3 sales a day.
And
So, like, it did
there's-
work.
So some people from that like sort of first crop of customers, a lot of them actually are still supporting the brand. I can't take names, but there are some that have spent around 100 grand in
On
their
Rastah
lifetime.
pieces.
In their lifetime. And these are just people from conversations, just like liked a photo, maybe saw like a post or an ad or something, just liked a photo, not even followed or messaged us. And then we messaged them, hey, thank you for supporting the brand. And that was just a like, you know? But we needed to do that. And then that sort of manifested itself into this big community that we have
Yeah.
today.
Again, like when you're short on money, you're like long on time, right?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
long on
that's
effort.
exactly what it was.
Because that's insane, right? Because you can't advertise your way into that. A lifetime customer being 100,000
Yeah.
is actually insane when
Yeah.
you think about it. Because again, like people always talk about like customer acquisition cost,
Yeah.
right? For one time.
Yeah.
But how do you even say like, yo, we didn't even advertise to this person. Like we just spent our hours talking
Yeah.
to them, building that relationship, nurturing that relationship, so they spend a lifetime with us.
And it's crazy because what I've seen is that the customer lifetime value for customers that come into the pipeline through very guerrilla and organic means is much higher than those compared to like from like advertising pipelines, because with the organic side, you're actually building like trust and relationships with them. And as a business grows, that obviously becomes harder. We can't sit and like DM people that have liked our photos and whatnot. But in the beginning, it was very, very important, and probably the best thing that we could have done in terms of marketing and sales.
Nah, I mean, that's insane because I think like when you say that, it just shows me, which I already kind of
Yeah.
knew. that
Yeah.
You guys aren't building a hoodie brand that y'all could just make like a quick like couple $1,000s, right? No. You guys are building like a true brand, right? Like Louis Vuitton is not, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
of what it is now. Like those things don't just pop up because of
Yeah.
advertising dollars spent in. People buy it, right? It's a brand,
Yeah.
a true and proper
brand,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And not just
Well,
we sell clothes.
I
Yeah.
think he's a creative at heart as well. He said some stuff that scares me actually occasionally. Like I remember when we first started, we were talking about like I'll give him 100% credit for this actually because I was like, dude, we need to drop the prices. Like we need to like sell more volume and
This
like
is when the hoodies were $90.
yeah, and he stick to he was
I
like,
said
nah,
we need to go
he's-
north.
And he was like, there was a one statement he said to me that actually scared me. He was like, dude, I don't care if this burns to the ground. Actually, I want to make pieces that
Yeah.
I love and like and everything. So I actually remember he said that to me. I was like, oh shit, like I'm in for a ride. And but it worked out. Like he was right. He was right. I'll give him credit for that. He was 100% right.
Because back then, you have to realize that there was nobody operating within our niche. And I knew for a fact that fast forward 3-4 years, we're going to be sort of surrounded by people that are either trying to copy us or inspired by us or trying to do the same thing as us. And we don't want to compete on price if something like that happens. You want people to buy your products regardless of the price. And sometimes sort of pricing yourself out of the competition, what it does is not only does it sort of protect your margins, you're not competing on price, so you're not having to like sort of sacrifice on that margin, but then there's also this perception that comes with it as well, because if you're like sort of the first mover and it's been 5 years, everybody else is sort of selling t-shirts and hoodies at like 50-60 bucks, but you're at 200, there's a comparative analysis that the consumer is doing that, hey, Rastah is like the elevated brand out of all of these. So if we're spending, it's like we're buying like something that is sort of very long term, and there's an association of, oh, we have like a contemporary or a luxury brand. In Pakistan, it's a much bigger thing in Pakistan than in New York, because if you're wearing Rastah, it sort of now become like a symbol of status and wealth as well, because of the fact that we've managed to raise our prices over the years and not compete on price with all these other guys.
I'm so glad that you had the vision to do that, because 5 years ago, right now, that would still be crazy.
Yeah.
Right. But 5 years ago, that's actually insane, because again, this niche didn't even truly exist.
Yeah.
So it's like, how am I even justifying becoming? Because what you're describing is essentially what Gucci, Louis Vuitton are now, right? It's just
Yeah.
purely status symbols. Like we know that the cost of a Louis bag is not whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. But we know, hey, if I buy this, everyone knows that I got this in this bag.
Yeah.
But to think of that about your clothes 5 years ago is insane.
It was a rough decision because it was right before COVID, and everything was shutting down, and in that time it did sort of impact us negatively in regards to like just like backlash and people on social media being like, oh, why is this Pakistani brand so expensive? Who do they think that they are? And that's at a time where we weren't anything. We didn't have any celebrities or press or anything, but I think we sort of all we came together and we understood that this is something that was sort of needed.
That bother you guys? That price conversation? Because I'm sure you guys still hear it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because also you guys
100%.
have also upped the
Yeah.
like the top end of these
Yeah,
things.
we
or-
have
or- I saw something yesterday when I was like looking at it, like 13K.
13K, yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
said 13.5 or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. So like y'all have also continued to up it, right? Do those price conversations bother y'all?
It's not even a conversation anymore,
No.
to be honest. It's not even a conversation anymore. It used to be, right? Like I think it was like a 2-on-1 type of situation at one point where both Anand and I were like, dude, we need to make this a real business now. Like what's going on? Da, da, da.
Hey,
Hey,
the pricing.
you gonna pay? Oh man, you need to be. I wish he was here actually, but yeah, it's not a conversation now.
How do y'all? I'm like I've already kind of guessed it before, but now seeing it, full on creative
Yeah,
business. Right?
yeah.
How are y'all meshing that? Because I, again, like personally, because I got both of those in me,
Yeah.
right? And I have to just argue with myself because I'm the business, right? But how are you guys navigating those conversations, right? Because I'm sure from a creative, artistic perspective, right? It's like, yo, this is like my form of expression. Like, this is my contribution to the lexicon of fashion, art, culture, right? But then this is also, again, a major, real business.
Yeah.
Right. And like, what is that now at the level that y'all are at? How
I actually
is
have
that
like
navigating?
two sides to my brain. One is like very like sort of spreadsheets and numbers, and he knows this. I'm very neurotic about that stuff.
Extremely.
Like I have that very like sort of businessy side, and then I also have the creative side. But I can only switch on one
At a
one.
time. Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't do the both.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have my creative side on, sometimes I'm thinking of crazy, wacky shit that probably doesn't make sense
Yeah.
from a financial side. But that's when you have like your partners and Ismail, Amin, and everybody to come in and be like, yeah, okay, we can do this, but this is probably a bad idea. So it's good to have that sounding board.
But to his credit, Amin and I talk about this all the time. Is like he's definitely grown as like a business person over the last few years. I don't think he would say the same like burn to the ground statement now,
Yeah.
to be honest. But before he was like, I want to put out what I want to put out. I don't care what happens. But yeah, now we definitely think about the business a lot.
Because now we
more.
have like so many employees and we
You
have
gotta
to take
think about
care
other
of them
people,
as well,
yeah.
right?
I think both are so necessary, right? So
Yeah.
I'm glad that both have existed, and now 5 years down the line,
Yeah.
you are saying that both continue to coexist, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that early fire and like I'm gonna burn it to the ground mentality. I say that about this pod all the time. Like I say like, yo, like I will burn my life to the ground for this shit, right? Like because I'm like proving it too, right? Like,
Yeah.
but it's like I think that that's so necessary early because for everyone else to believe in what this brand is, they have to believe that the people behind it believe in it as much, like times 10.
Yeah.
Like they have to be the most rah about their brand.
Yeah.
Because if y'all don't, there's nothing. Why should I believe it?
Exactly.
Like why should I believe? Why should I believe that that hoodie is worth 400? Or why should I believe that this jacket should be 13 and a half?
Yeah.
Like why? Because we say so.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we like live and breathe the brand to the max, where we're sort of dreaming about it as well. And I'll wake up with panic attacks, being like, oh, what's gonna happen tomorrow? I mean, I know that's a bit dark, but yeah, like we really are immersed within that. And I mean, all I wear is Rastah. You'll see on my feed, on my stories. This is literally all I'm wearing. And fine, my personal style might not be as loud as the designs I make, but I'm always looking at my brand to see what can I wear from these pieces every single day, and what can I use within my research or within my sort of radar of inspirations to create that next collection. And then that story is sort of very profoundly, I would say, projected to the community and the consumers, and then they sort of feel that as well, because whenever I design a collection as well, we're sharing that process from the start to the end. So if I start designing a collection in January, I'll put up a story that, hey, this is the first sketch, this is the second sketch, now this piece is done, this piece is being made, this is in the process. Like we're literally sort of like teasing out like movie trailers on how everything is being done.
Part of the storytelling.
Yeah, 100%.
Part of the storytelling. Just creative to creative. Like, what is your? Because it's like you're saying, you guys are immersed in the brand, right? You guys dream about the brand, right? What does that practically look like from a like creative perspective, right? Because like, are you thinking like, is it pure inspiration? Like, hey, this is coming and I want to do this, or is it a little bit more tactical and a little bit more planned? Like, yo, I need to produce this type of.
It's a bit of both. Before, it used to be just like a wildfire of like an idea comes to you and then you're like, I need to do it. But it's something that you need to, with time, it's a skill that you need to like sort of hone. It's kind of, I don't know do you watch Dragon Ball Z?
Yeah, I have.
So when like they're trying to turn Super Saiyan, it's like they can't control it and like they don't know how to manage that energy. But once they are able to control it, then you're able to switch on and off very easily. Same with the creative side of things. You want to create a collection that's very well balanced, and you want to be able to be in a frame of mind where you can sit down at any given moment, because you have to follow a business calendar, right? I can't be like, yeah, you know what, I'm not in the mood to design a collection, so I'm just not going to do one. But that can't happen because the business still needs to run. So you need to train yourself to be like, hey, it's February now. This collection needs to launch in 5 months. I need to start working on it. I might not have those creative ideas in my mind, but I need to have certain ways to spark that creativity. Oftentimes it'll be travel. Oftentimes it'll be writing. It'll be tapping into past experiences, archives, your emotional state. And then once you're able to gather all of that, what I typically like to do is like write everything down so that I know that, okay, this is kind of like the base template of what the emotive elements of the collection are. Once I have that, then all of that then goes into like a breakdown of a spreadsheet. If there's 100 pieces in a collection, I'm like, okay, 20 of these are going to be the ones that are going to be the wildest, wackiest, and they're going to be the ones that tell the story. And they're going to be very expensive to make. But we won't make like hundreds of each, because then that's you're sort of risking the business at that point. And then the other 30, 40 are sort of in that mid tier, like you said, in that $300 to $400 range, where there's a certain clientele that's going to come and buy them. And then you've got the bottom end, which is easy to buy pieces, but then still embody like the spirit of the collection, that still have those elements of the collection, but in a very toned down sort of a way. And those are higher quantity. It's kind of like a pyramid, and sort of, I would say, following the Pareto principle, where like a very small amount of what you do brings in 80 to 90% of the results. But each piece of that puzzle serves a very different purpose. The top end, which is those wacky pieces, may not sort of sell through, but if you don't have them, the collection loses its personality, right? So you need that. You need those top end pieces for the bottom ones to be able to sell and push through. Because people might be looking at the top end, the crazy pieces, but then buying into like the easy to wear ones.
I can even attest to that, and that just shows me, and it's true for most successful business owners, and I can definitely hear it in both of yours takes on your business, is that you guys truly understand your, back to being immersed in the brand, truly understand your brand, right? Like you understand like the relationships probably from having those intimate conversations with essentially your community, exactly what it is that your community is looking for, exactly how they're thinking. Like having, that's essentially when people talk about like, oh, like people are buying data, and that's what they're trying to put together. They're trying to put together who's their community.
Yeah.
But you guys were able to do it in the most intimate way without having to spend on like, like analytics. It's just, hey, this is what our brand is.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is what our pieces do. This is the story that we're trying to tell. This is why it's going to resonate. Yeah. I think that, again, it's like priceless experiences like that are able to now like, hey, I know I don't need to go look at sometimes to keep ourselves honest, I don't need to look at like a bunch of analytics to tell me what my audience is going to like. Yeah. I know, right? Like I'm talking to them, or I have talked to them. Yeah. Something like even like the pop-up, I think is like very cool. Yeah. Because although like I'm sure the pop-up is like annoying to like put together, and it's like a whole process outside of like, hey, we could just put this out and it would sell. Yeah. But being able to see your audience and having them interact with the brand in a physical way, important.
Well, that's something we invested in like really early, like almost prematurely. Our first pop-up in New York was behind a coffee shop. So we didn't have the money to obviously rent out space. But I think the conversation behind that was like, we need to build a community. We need to actually hear from people what they think about the product as well. So it's something we did super, super early, very deliberately, even when maybe we weren't ready. By the way, that pop-up, even that first one went so well that we were like, this has to be like a mainstay for us. And hence now we have something that's like 6, 7, 8 times bigger now. But yeah.
It's like how your community truly responds to y'all, right? And each piece. I shared I always know that a brand is really good when other people tell me like about it, right? Like I think I told you this story earlier. Like, I just met with like a random pod fan from like Seattle. Like, he came to New York, and he brings it to my attention. He's like, oh, like Rastah's coming in like a couple of weeks. Like, are you gonna go check it out? And at the time, I was like, yeah, I will, right? And it's like, oh, like when somebody feels that vigorously about a brand, it shows that like, hey, what I'm doing is more than just I sell clothes, right? Yeah, I have a real community.
Yeah, and you don't want to be the brand that does too much of the same thing over and over again, especially in fashion, because the barrier to entry is very low. You could go out, print a few T-shirts, create a brand name, and start selling clothes. So with the barrier to entry being so low, it's very important to keep iterating on what you've done and trying to put out more new things and expanding into different categories and constantly testing yourself as to what more can be done within that playing field. So for us, we're now looking into you know, I'll say it on the podcast, sneakers and shoes. We've been working on one for the last 12 months, and hopefully it should be done in like 4 or 5 months. It's, by the way, the first sample is going to arrive in like 2
That's
days.
sick. Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't get
Here?
lost. Brooklyn.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I didn't
Sneakers?
even know
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sneakers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe
Made
if you
in
guys want to
Pakistan?
see it, you can come down to the pop up.
The embroidery is going to be made in Pakistan, but some of the parts are
Yeah.
going to be made in Portugal because that level of manufacturing for sneakers just simply doesn't exist in
It's
Pakistan.
Pakistan, I figured. Okay.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Again, like pushing, being at the edge of it, right? Like being
Yeah.
the leader in the space really comes with like that, right? Like how do I continuously like raise the bar? I'm glad that we're having this conversation, but like something that you said that I resonated with me because I do want to give, I want you to have the opportunity to give up and coming brands that advice, right? Which is like, because something I noticed and something that Rastah doesn't shy away from, but is completely has a different take on. I'm so used to like the same South Asian tropes and South Asian styles
Yeah.
built into like our clothing. Like I'm talking like the new brands that are coming up, right? The idea of just like putting some Hindi on it or
Yeah,
putting
yeah,
some,
yeah.
like Urdu on
That's
it.
done.
Like-
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I've seen it. Like, you know what I mean? Like having the girl in the sari on the hoodie, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that's been done, right? And
Yeah.
it's kind of like as a consumer, it's like tiring, right?
Yeah.
But how do we? Because like again, like Rastah, obviously, like you can tell is a South Asian brand, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't just like go to these like cliched tropes
Yeah.
that are like so overdone. Like how, as like a designer, right? As a business, how do we stay away from that?
The best way is to find a niche that's as small as possible, because something happens when you do that, which is kind of like this concept of a niche spillover. And the example that I like to give is with Supreme. I mean, over 20 years ago or something, Supreme was just a skate shop that was meant for a very small group of community members and customers within that skate and surf community. And then it blew up into what we know of it as today. And the reason why that happens is that once you conquer a very small niche, everybody on the outside and the fringes feels like, oh, that's very cool. Like, this is very closed off. I want to be a part of this group. And that niche starts to spill over into the masses. So what people are forgetting is that there's so many different niches that haven't been tapped into. I'll give you just, let me think of like one example. So like, for example, in Pakistan, there's a big subculture of bike riding, motorbikes. And they basically go out on rallies and races, and sometimes they bet their entire savings on these races. And it's usually lower middle class and middle class people that are part of this subculture. Another one is the wrestling subculture in Pakistan, or even like different sort of provinces within Pakistan or India. Each province, each city has its own specific identity. So if people can latch onto that and just talk about something that is very personal to them, that makes it very, very different. And it makes it very, very appealing as well. Another thing that I can think of is a brand that is solely focused on maybe like shithousery, like meme culture to the max, but like very sort of like underground memes from Pakistan or India. So there's a lot of ways you could do it. But the point is to go as narrow as possible. The mistake that people are making is that they're like, oh, it needs to be very generic. Most brand owners these days think that the consumers are stupid. Oh, it needs to be very generic. We're going to write some Hindi so that everybody knows that there's Hindi or Urdu on it, and then everybody's going to want to buy it. But that's not the case. So you're thinking that the consumer is stupid and that they don't have any like sort of interests or associations. But the importance is to go as niche as you possibly can, and sort of be like, you have to be a little irrational and illogical, because the logical approach is for you to do
Go to
what
what has a market.
yeah, to what has already worked.
Yeah.
But in fashion, that doesn't work, because the thing is that everybody else is already doing that. You could do that maybe in a tech business and be more operationally lean and efficient and sort of outcompete your competitor. But in fashion, it doesn't make sense because if if I'm successful, let's say with my brand, and you're like, oh, hey, he's done what he's done, so maybe I should do what he's doing, but a little different. And what that's going to do is that it's going to give a signal to the market that, hey, this is the same shit that everybody else has done. And if everybody's following that same rule or that same trope, everybody looks the same. So you have to be a little illogical and different in that aspect.
Yo, Rob, can I get this camera? I hope everyone's like really listening because like the game is actually insane. Because I know Zan's saying it about fashion,
Yeah.
but what you're describing is honestly like everything that we're like looking at in culture.
Yeah, 100%.
In culture, right? Like I think about like that what you're saying about media all the time.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, yo, eventually that happens in every culture, right? Like
100%.
I think about like internet Twitch streamers, right? These kids started off on like a fringe of the internet,
Yeah.
right? Gaming and streaming on Twitch. Now these kids are in every single brand deal.
Yeah,
It's exploded.
100%.
And it's like, again, like people want to look to, again, like what's easy and also what's proven, but that's not where culture or art truly happens.
Yeah.
It has to happen like that, right?
At
It
a very
has,
small level.
again, it has to be authentic.
It's kind of like an embryo. Like it starts off very small, and then it sort of takes its time, and it grows into what it is. And the same thing happens with music. The same thing happens with film. I mean, there was a time when, obviously, I think it was the 20s or the 30s, where sound came into film, and everybody was like, "Oh, this is a fad." Can you imagine? like, you know, has anyone seen the movie? I think it's Babylon, the one with Brad Pitt. It's a very like profound movie in the sense that it just shows you how, in a given moment in time, something might seem very audacious and different, but then if you fast forward a decade, that then becomes the norm. Which is why studying history is so important.
I think about even where y'all started. I'm sure when you guys started, people were like, could that exist?
Yeah.
A South Asian Pakistani brand
100%.
Yeah.
that somebody's gonna spend $300, $400, $500 on a hoodie. Brown people don't care about being brown like that.
Yeah,
Like, why
yeah,
would that work?
Especially in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Really?
Logically, it would have been like if I was pitching this idea 5 years ago to an investor, they'd be like, are you stupid? This is not going to happen.
What is the predecessor in Pakistan, right? Like your audience, right?
Yeah.
Your audience, like who, like if y'all didn't occupy the space and invent something new, like where would they have been?
I mean, they're
Like in
probably
fashion.
buying like established Western brands.
Western brands.
Like
Yeah.
Chanel, Dior's, Prada, like these types of brands.
But again, now I'm competing. Started off in a niche,
Yeah.
But now I'm competing with these brands for
Yeah.
market share.
Yeah. So
Right.
now what's happening is that in Pakistan, people are buying Rastah because of the fact that it's become this sort of status symbol, and obviously it's not as expensive as Louis or Balenciaga or whatnot, but then people have another option where previously they felt it was uncool to wear something made in Pakistan unless it was a shalwar kameez. Now it's like, oh shit, this is like, I can be proud about this. So that's where that's leaning into. And a lot of that comes with the fact that, you know, the celebrities that we've gotten, Justin Bieber, French Montana, now Barry Keoghan, Timothy Chalamet, all these guys. So what that does is that in Pakistan, it sort of signals to everybody there, oh, wait, we've been sleeping on this brand and all these big celebrities are wearing it now as well. So now it's become a part of their daily fit or their wardrobe as well. And different consumers buy the brand for different reasons.
But I think that brand validation is important, right? Like by those names. I know like we shouldn't look to cosigns outside of our culture.
Yeah.
It should be that like, yo, it doesn't matter that this is brown, right?
Yeah.
Because this is so cool that I'm going to wear it regardless.
Yeah.
Which it is.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
it was even back then, right? That's
Yeah.
why you had an audience as it grows. But for the other people who need that validation, now
Yeah.
you have it. Now you have every name that you've heard of, wear this. Now it's not just some brown clothing brand that makes clothes that are too expensive for me. Now it's, oh, I'm in their tier.
Yeah, because you don't want to be the brand that is just trying to sort of be the king of their own hill. Like, you don't want to be the brand that's like, oh, like, we're just trying to, like, be the best South Asian brand. You want your brand to be appreciated by people that aren't South Asians as well and spill over onto that flip side as well. That's where you actually start to, like, make an impact. that's where like, the actual conversations around change and like what the trends are going to look like, the decision makers, they all lie outside of this ecosystem. So you have to be able to traverse that pond in order to sort of inspire more people within that pond to be like, okay, they can do the same thing. You see the same thing with film, Riz, or with comedians. And I mean, Kumail is also like now an actor as well. But these guys have sort of traversed that cookie cutter South Asian mold. And now the conversation that, South Asians are just supposed to be within this little bucket, that conversation is changing. And we need to be able to like constantly challenge those stereotypes.
No, I think like for you to, I have to always be reminded of that from people who are further along in their journey, right? Like that's why I love having those conversations, because they're like, yo, like you want to make like a real impact, right? It doesn't happen on this like, it does happen on this like local, like regional level, right? But you want to truly shift culture, right? You have to be a part of it. You can't be a part of South Asian culture, right? You can't be a South Asian celebrity. Like, what does that even mean to us in this day and age?
Yeah,
like you're like you're brown, like you have to be accepted. But I think a big part that obviously Rastah like upholds is the fact that the product has to be good.
Yeah,
like 100%. It has to be good.
Yeah.
I think that's like where we like lose it, right? Like, and that's why most of those brands don't even get to that place in that conversation of like, oh, are we now cool outside of brown, right? Because they're actually not even that good, even if it was just brown. Like, I think about like some of the products that like come out, it's like, oh, like this is a business to you, right? Like you want like revenue right away, right? It's the simplest form of production, right? Like you're not even the blankets, whichever is most cost effective, right? Because you're trying to create a business. And to create the brand that outlasts that, right? You want to be like the Mona Lisa? You have to treat it like that. You have to build it just like that.
Yeah, well, I think we're competing in that sphere. I told you off the podcast as well, when like stylists pull for these celebrities, we're sitting next to like humongous brands. So it's a big, proud moment.
No, please tell that story, because tell me how that works for the audience who may not know.
Nice.
But basically, a stylist will request something, right? And they'll request the same thing from like 20 other brands. These might be like Louis Vuitton, Prada, Dior, whatever. The Rastah will be somewhere in the mix, in the rack, right? And for them to pick Rastah from the lot is like, for us, it's happened a number of times. So we know like we're competing at that level.
I think that's insane, right? Because of the names that you've said, I think about the brands that those people wear. Right, and I also think that the ones that Rastah have gotten personally are some like I don't look at celebrities as like, oh, this is a celebrity, I gotta be a fan. But I'm talking like people who, in my opinion, push cool.
Yeah,
Justin Bieber, Zayn, right? Like guys who have like true like. So like now when you say like your brand is being donned by those, and they're picking them.
Yeah.
Right, like that's like the cooler part, right? Like it's like I think people have a different level of appreciation once they understand the process. Because I think some people just think like, oh, like they sent them some PR package and they wore it. It's like, no.
We've never paid for a single placement to this day. Big, small, anything.
I want y'all to talk about that even more, right? Because I think that's like when you're like, again, like one of these like peons that are just watching, right? You're going to find any way to tear this down, right? So it's like, oh, they just paid. Because some people do, right? Like some people pay for that, right? But I want y'all to actually explain and truly put emphasis on that, right? The fact is that these people are picking my brand.
I mean, first of all, we don't have the money for that shit anyway. but like we never raised capital or any of that. Like we have to go down this route. Otherwise, maybe we would think about it. I don't know actually, but we haven't.
So it's not the pay to play route isn't a bad route. It's just that you need to have the capital, and then it needs to make sense. Because if you're just paying for someone to wear something in an Instagram story, it doesn't make sense. It makes sense if you're getting like certain like call to actions out of it. The other thing to just add on to what he said was that you can't just send a PR package to a celebrity and then expect them to wear it. Like I'll give you an example. I was talking to someone who has a few friends from Drake's camp, and I was like, what if we have his address? What if we just send it to him? And he asked the stylist, and the stylist was like, just started laughing. He's like, you do realize that he literally has a separate lot in his house where he has employees that's kind of like a storage unit of sorts, where all they do is just accept gifts and they just stack them up. So he's not going to pull anything from that. And even if you make it to the fitting room, there's a lot of politics that's at play. So you might have your big legacy brands like Balenciaga, Louis Vuitton on the racks, but then you might have like smaller labels that just got backed by private equity or just got backed by a family office. And they're sort of like putting pressure on the stylist and whatnot to be like, this is the brand that we want to push now. A lot of what we see in fashion is really, really manufactured, especially within the mainstream fashion ecosystem where you have fashion shows and you have press. A lot of what all of you guys see is there's a narrative that's being built up for certain brands to be able to be positioned to succeed. And sometimes they still fail and they lose their independence in doing that. But we're completely independent. And that's why this is so important for us to be able to keep doing it that way. Of course, if we have an opportunity to have like an amazing celebrity be a brand ambassador and like the money makes sense, we wouldn't say no to that.
But I think it's important that it is. I'm not saying that that route doesn't work, but I'm saying I think it's important to highlight the fact that there's a value in the fact that it is authentic and organic.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because again, like, I think once you understand that there is politics and business at play, you realize that, like, again, like, most of these rappers, it's like, is Prada really, like, are you really a fan of Prada? Maybe. Or is Prada paying you?
Yeah.
Right? Are you drinking Ciroc because whatever, right? Like, that comes into play. And I think the consumer knows that, right? But when it's like an organic choice, like, when you think about it, like, Zayn Malik is, like, probably, like, top 3 people that I think, when I think about the Rastah brand, I would think of.
Yeah.
Right? Like, when you, I think about, like, when you think Stoner, you think Wiz Khalifa.
Yeah.
Right? If I was to think Rastah and I was to think of a celebrity, Zayn Malik would probably be, like, the first 5 celebrities I'd name. It just makes sense. And then when I think about, like, Rastah as a global brand, it's like, who would I think would wear Rastah? Probably, like, a Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if I were to think of it. So I think that's important, the fact that it is organic, right? Because, like, yes, could you find someone that is the hit or is the audience that you're trying to hit? But if it's truly that good of a product fit, it happened organically.
Yeah. I think the best way to do it is you have a bunch of these organic placements that are super organic because they feel so raw and authentic. But then once the business has grown to a point, you want like, maybe in a few years, you want like a solid partnership with a celebrity. So maybe like, maybe Zayn is like, in like a Rastah editorial shoot, or maybe he becomes a brand ambassador, just throwing stuff out there. That sort of sets up the chessboard so that it kind of makes sense as well, that everything was done organically. And now these celebrities are like directly sort of working with Rastah on like a campaign or something.
You know who just did a masterful job of that? Kolkata Chai.
Yeah.
Masterful job. Like that is
100%.
Yo,
So,
Ani,
like,
I know Ani, I'm gonna send this to you, right? But like masterclass,
Yeah,
right?
we talk about that.
The organic relationship between Kolkata Chai and Hassan, right? They went on tour with him, right? I went to the event where he popped out, right? And served everyone chai. This was all before this Bloomberg business shit, right?
Yeah.
That's all before. So then when I hear it, I'm like, oh, you got him.
So that's exactly what I'm talking about, where the chessboard was set up for something that was more solidified and just like it sort of made so much sense from a business standpoint as well.
Bro, masterclass,
Yeah,
right?
that was great.
Masterclass. I think like, and yo, I'm so glad I got to like meet y'all and like chop it up with y'all, because it makes me, of course, I should have known, but every time I'm astounded that the people at the helms of these things are just so there, right? Like that are just killers, right?
We're actually really stupid.
We are. We're both thinking the same thing right now.
Like, listen, people are going to listen through this and nobody is going to ever be able to say that. Like, it's actually like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I got like real like chills because I feel that way about certain people. Like, I really do. Like,
we're literally going to go down and be like, damn, man, like he actually thinks we're smart. Like, oh, shit.
Nah, nobody's going to be able to say that. Like, the way that, like, again, like, even like, I think some of the phenomenons that you've vocalized are things that I think about all the time. I have never been able to, I don't think, effectively communicate that because I truly believe in those things that you were saying, right?
Yeah.
Like the market spillover, right? Like I truly see that for South Asian culture as a whole, right? Like I know you guys are thinking about it from like just fashion, right? I think about it as culture as a whole, right? Like what does that spillover look like?
Yeah, and you want to see what that spillover evolves into a decade from now.
Absolutely.
And with this sort of stuff, especially with this, like where you have this concept of a niche spillover, you can't look at it in the now, or you can't even look at it 6 months from now. You have to study and see, okay, what can this be 10 years from now? And it needs to be something where a decade from now, people need to be saying, damn, how did that happen? That needs to be the gameplay.
This business is just predicated upon that.
Yeah, I will give him credit there as well because he's been saying this since the day we started. But I'm like, dude, how are we gonna like live like next year? How are we gonna
Which
pay
is a
bills?
fair point.
Yeah, but it's worked out honestly, one step at a time. But it has worked out.
Nah, like I think about that all the time. I'm all like, yo, like even behind this, like this podcast does not make sense. Does not make money. Like none of it makes sense. The market isn't even there for that yet,
Yeah.
right? But like for what I think it is, right? Because again, I have full faith in y'all, right?
Yeah.
Like I always say that I have full faith in y'all. I have a full faith that y'all will turn this into a Prada or a Gucci, right? I have full faith in that, right? And you don't think it's gonna be crazy for me if that's where y'all get in 5 to 10 years, right? Come on, where am I? Like honestly, like that's what I always think about. Like the people that are building these things, right? Like I'm just like, yo, I just have to exist.
Yeah.
I just have to exist,
Yeah.
right? Like y'all doing like the real like killer work, right? Like I just have to exist. Like that's how I really look at it, because it's like, yo, I have no qualms that Kolkata Chai is going to compete with Starbucks. I have no concerns about that.
Yeah.
I have no concerns about Rastah competing with Prada. Like I know that those things will happen. And then how crazy is it going to be that I'm going to be able to text Ish, who is now the CEO, publicly traded, whatever, right? Of whatever this
So that's
ends
gonna
up
be
being,
this guy, but
right? Like, whatever
I don't want to. I would want to give that to someone else.
whatever this
I'm
ends
done
up,
with this.
whatever this ends up being. Honestly, I think about that, right? And like I'm excited to hear anytime this conversation pops
Yeah.
up, like y'all take on it, right? The fact that
Sure.
you guys view it that way as well.
Well, it's a funny one because like we talk about this. I don't know if you agree, but I would never have gone to fashion. Now that I know everything I know, it's a shit business.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't advise anybody to get into
Yeah, don't do this.
the business of fashion unless like you would have to be the ones that really want to do it will probably not take this advice and still do it.
Well,
Those
that's
are the
good.
ones that
That's
are
good,
supposed to
yeah.
be doing it.
Absolutely. I think that's why like the barrier to entry to culture, I used to complain about it, right? I'm like, no. It should suck.
100%.
It should absolutely suck. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it should absolutely suck. Because that's how I know you, like, that's how you know you truly love it.
Yeah, because if you don't get the shit kicked out of you, then you don't know how to persevere. And as long, even like, let's take your podcast as an example. As long as you don't shut the podcast down, or as long as you don't give up, you still haven't failed. You still haven't lost. You might have those micro failures, but you haven't lost. So you just need to keep going and existing. And there's gonna come a point in time where you're gonna see, usually with stuff like this, you have like these big wins, and then it's kind of like this, and it's like this, and it's like this, and you gotta be able to ride out those plateaus, which is why like I feel like that foresight, decade from now mentality is very important. Maybe a decade from now, you are doing something with Netflix, and you have like a big sort of say in how conversations are being had within this community, and maybe not just this community, but also outside of the mainstream South Asian community.
And that's crazy. When y'all, that's crazy. That's crazy. Like when
I feel so much more profound after this podcast.
It's always so crazy when like other people see, like it's weird because we've never ever talked.
Yeah.
Right. And those are what you said is only things that like I've probably told like 1 or 2 people in the world. Like that predictor.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like that's, I think about that like all the time. It's like weird for me to say.
Yeah.
But like it truly is like that, right? Because that's how I think of it. It's like kind of sick. Because in the day to day, my shit sucks. Like my life sucks, right? Like I love my life. Let me stop, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, but I only think about it from that,
Yeah.
right? Like I have to. That's the only thing that truly keeps this shit like going, right? Like running on like faith. But this is sick. I end every podcast with a segment called Call Your Shot. It's my version of like goal setting, manifesting, whatever, right? The idea being is something that you guys say will happen, because I know y'all will go out and make it happen next 3, 5, whatever years, right? And then when you make it happen, I'm gonna clip it up, send it to y'all. It's gonna be a thing. So guys, call your shot.
This is a hard one for me because for me, to be honest, I've really enjoyed the process. I don't know what's next. I don't even know if I want what's next. I don't know if I want funding. I don't know if I want to be bought out. Like, actually don't know. My only hope and my manifestation is like we can keep this going in the way we have done it so far because we've stayed authentic to the reasons we've started. Generally, that might be really boring to say, but that's all I care about. I actually don't know if I want any of those other things.
No, but that in itself is
It's-
incredible.
Yeah, I
right?
generally, I'm not sure how he feels about that, but we've had opportunity to raise funding. We've said no. We could have said yes. We have these discussions, but I actually don't know.
I think mine would be I wish for Ismail to stop rolling up his trousers above his socks.
This is a big pet
If
peeve of his.
these trousers come down and fall right above
This
over
is never
here,
gonna happen. But
then I'd be very happy.
can you pick a different one? Because this isn't gonna happen.
The other one is that I would want us to finally just put up the vinyl stickers outside the pop-up in like proper alignment. We never succeed at that. The stickers are always wonky.
Now everyone's gonna look at
every
that.
single time. But jokes aside, I think in the short term it would be one would be to have a permanent store in New York and then also a permanent store in Pakistan. So New York first and then Pakistan. And then I kind of would want to have, not now, but maybe a few years from now, a store in LA, either on Melrose or on Rodeo Drive. Because the Mike Amiri thing, I don't know if you guys know about this, but I think he moved into the Rodeo Drive store that Hermes was getting out of. So if we were able to like sort of be on Rodeo Drive or even like a Melrose, or even in New York and Soho, that's like a big thing. It's kind of like this Robin Hood sort of a mentality where Pakistan had been like colonized for like so many years. I mean, it was part of India and whatnot, and we've always been at the sort of receiving end of a lot of bad stuff. So it's kind of like you're taking back what's yours. So those stores is one, and then obviously like a few celebrities that I'd want to see in Rastah. One would be probably Drake. We've been trying to do that. So I don't know if Drake is watching this. Maybe
Drake is watching this. My life is different.
maybe while he drinks his.
You're doing better than you think.
I know, like Drake is watching this, guys. We're good.
Maybe while he's drinking his passion fruit drink, he's late night, just cuddled into his $15,000 bed sheets, and he's just like, this is his guilty pleasure. So
I watch conversations with that would be the sickest.
One quick thing where I will say I'm surprised his aspirations were that because the New York store will happen, and the Pakistan store will happen, and probably within the next 2 years or so.
Yeah.
That's my shot actually.
Again,
I think that will happen.
That's the point, right? Like all of this will happen. I know it, right? Like I have so much like confidence in that, right? Like every single time I get to see it. Like sometimes it's hard for me to like contextualize my own, right? But when I get to see the brand grow, because I've like followed now Rastah for like years. And I'm like, oh, look, what it is now is not what I left it at.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I've, like,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, again, we're always like consuming things that fell off for a bit. I was like, yeah, right. And seeing that, it's like, oh, if that's what happened in 3 years, what happens in another 3? What happens in another 3? Yo, this was incredible, y'all.
Thank you so
y'all
much.
doing this.
Appreciate it.
Thank y'all. Peace,
Appreciate
peace, 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 peace. Yeah, thank y'all for listening. Yo, y'all are crazy.
Mera pair so gaya. Oh shit, my foot just fell asleep.
Maybe another massage.
You guys have with each other is crazy.
I wish we had a mean as well.
I was gonna crack a few more jokes. Is this like a very serious podcast?
No.
I was gonna
actually
crack a
don't know,
lot
to
of.
be honest.
I was gonna crack a.
Yeah, it's fine. All right, good.
I usually crack a lot of jokes. There's a lot of chirps that I throw out over there.
Yo, not even gassing.
Good.
Making a test. Word to my mom's. Right. This was my favorite podcast.
Oh, really?
Really?
Appreciate that, man.
Yo, you like are incredible. Like, I don't think we've ever had like insane. Like the vision for it.
It's
right?
all him. Last night he prepped me on what to say because I
I
don't
did
know.
remind him like 20 times, like, dude, we have a podcast at 4:30. Dude, we have a podcast.
He wrote me a full script and I memorized everything.
Nah, let me
No. Can you do solos of them as well, please? Thank you.
like solos or like just?
Solos and together.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is this me or is this both of us? Oh,
Next
You're all good.
I think I'm back in next Wednesday.
now him.
Yeah.